Hey, my name is Russell Brunson, and today I want to tell you guys a story about one of my favorite companies in the world. It's called Success. You've probably heard of it before, but you may not know the story about how Success actually got started, and it's honestly one of the most amazing stories of all time. So I want to tell you guys the story. It all starts with this guy right here, who is the founder of Success. His name's Orison Swett Marden. And Orison was a business person who he owned a bunch of hotels and things like that. And one day, he actually, in the attic of one of his homes, he found this book. And it was a book written in the 1850s called Self-Help by Samuel Smiles. And he read this book and it completely changed his life. It was the first ever book he'd read. It was actually the first ever book written about personal development. But he read this book and he got so excited about personal development. He's like, I don't care about my business anymore. I want to share this message with people. And so he sat down, he started writing a book, and he ended up writing like a 400 or 500 page manuscript. There was all his thoughts on personal development and success and how to be successful. And he had this manuscript in one of his hotels, and he left one day for a trip or vacation or something, and that hotel actually burned to the ground. And he comes back to the hotel, and he's standing in the ashes, and he realizes that his life's work he spent years and years writing was completely gone. And most people would just given up at that point, but instead Orison sat back down. He said, okay, I'm gonna write this book again. And he sat down, he went and got paper, everything, and he started writing a book again. And that book became his first ever book, which was called Pushing to the Front by Orison Swett Marden. And this was the first of about 40 or so books he ended up writing over his career. But this was the very beginning, and this was his contribution to the world, teaching personal development and success principles and philosophies. And so that's what Pushing to the Front was, his very first book. And then shortly after that is when he actually launched the company, Success Magazine. I've been collecting Success Magazine now for a couple of years. I have almost every issue that was published in the 1800s. And I'm gonna show you guys a couple of them right now, but the first thing I want to show you guys is actually this picture I found when I was doing my collecting. And this is a picture of, you can see Orison over here on the side, and this was the magazine back in the day. All the people here, you see them all, it's just so cool, the romance of how they did it back in the day. They're all dressed up in their suits. They have the issue, you can see the cover back there, and all of them working on the issue of the magazine. And I actually took this picture, and I had one of my designers blow it up, and we made this huge print back here. And so you can see this is the actual print of them working in the Success office. And we took a whole bunch of Orison's quotes and kind of put them here inside of the painting. And so it's kind of a cool, for me to remember like what it would have been like back in the day to work at the Success offices, working on these magazines back in the very beginning. Like back then in America, people were not talking about personal development and success until Orison launched this magazine, put it out in the world, and it changed everything for everybody. I'm gonna show you guys this right here, actually, is the first ever issue of Success Magazine. It's published December 1897, and it was the very first issue that ever was published. After that, in 1898, they published it. It was published once a month all the way up until December, and then December of 1898, they decided to transition it into a weekly magazine. And so it went from being a thicker magazine that had a lot more pages to it shifted to something that became basically a weekly magazine. And they ran it as a weekly magazine for an entire year. And each of the weekly issues were much smaller. They're all just beautiful. I love the design of them. They did it for an entire year, and after that, they must have been too much work to publish a weekly newsletter, so they transitioned back into a monthly at the beginning of the 1900s, which is kind of fun. And so again, I have almost every single issue of the 1800s. I've been trying to collect all of them. I think I'm missing 6 right now. I actually found one of them yesterday, which is kind of exciting. And then after that, transitioned back into a monthly newsletter in January of 1901. And there's tons of really cool issues here, but I want to show you one of my favorite ones. And this one is actually the December 1900 issue, and this was the Christmas issue. Okay, before I tell you the story about the December 1900 issue, I want to show you really quick. So again, this was Orison's first book, but he became a very, very prolific writer. Again, this is a copy of the book that he read called Self-Help by Samuel Smiles. He read this and it changed the whole direction of his life, and he started writing. And so these are actually all books that were published by Orison Swett Marden during his life, and there's so many of them. This one's called Round Pegs and Square Holes. This one's called Every Man a King, which is one of the greatest of all time. Winning Out, Choosing a Career, The Hour of Opportunity, Why Grow Old, Do It to the Finish, Young Men Entering Business, Self-Investment. Like, he wrote so many books on top of publishing one of the most prolific magazines in the history of all time. And so these are all just really cool things and artifacts. I got a lot of signatures and things from Orison Swett Marden as he was starting his career. So I just want to show you guys that really quick, and now we'll jump over to the magazine so I can tell you guys a little bit more about the story of the December 1900 Christmas issue. So in the early 1900s, they transitioned back into having a monthly magazine every single month, and they shifted how they started doing the cover art. And so they hired a guy named J.C. Leyendecker, who's one of the most famous artists of the time. He did covers for almost all of the major magazines. His styles, one you've probably noticed and seen before, if you looked at old magazines. And so they were able to get him. And the way they would do this is they would go and they would send out a commission like, hey, we're looking for an issue for this magazine or whatever the magazine is. And artists, what they would do is they would make like a proposal, a commission on what they would want to design. And so what's cool about this is the commission from J.C. Leyendecker for the Success December magazine. So this is the actual painting. So what would happen, he would have drawn this, brought it to Orison Swett Marden, the team, and say, hey, this is my proposal for what the magazine could be. And what's cool, if you look at this, you can notice he's like trying different things. Like there's different versions of the hands that he's looking at. There's different versions of the swatches and the like, kind of how they do the different things. And so they would have brought that. They would have said, yes, we love that. And then he would have got the commission. Then he would go back and paint the final one. So this was the pre-work. And then what this painting right here became the December 1900 Success magazine cover, which is kind of cool. So that's kind of what this painting is. And like I said, this is an original Leyendecker that he would have used to pitch this to Success magazine. And it was cool, again, 1900s, they used this one, but they liked it so much that in December 1919, so 19 years later, they then reused it again as another issue for the same one. So kind of fun that they did that. Now I have a couple other original Leyendecker paintings that became magazine covers as well. So let me grab those for you guys real quick. Okay, this is another one of the original Leyendecker paintings. This one right here ended up becoming this issue right here. You see the people are the same. And this one is one, probably one of my favorites because it's so similar, like the original commission and then the final art piece looks so much similar between these two, which is pretty cool. So that's the story how Success Magazine got started by Orison Swett Marden and literally transformed the country, teaching people around the entire country about success principles, how to achieve more in life, how to be more happy, and it all started here at Success Magazine, one of the greatest companies in the world.